So.
Well, I better, I probably should touch base. Doug Toves, he's our volunteer out on Moody Lake. He has expressed an interest.
Yeah, you should probably let him know.
He's our camp volunteer out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, probably wouldn't hurt to at least let him know that it may be coming up here. So
he fits the profile, recently retired.
there you go. There you go. Time on his hands, perhaps.
No, I think he's picked up some other stuff, but yeah, I know he has. He told me he's still he's in that gray area, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I went through that. That was the first 18 months or so after I retired, and then I realized I really didn't want to work for a living, so I gave that up and really retired. So
mhm. Okay, let's see. Do we have a
Yeah.
third? No. No? Okay.
And we should call Fran and say, have him sit in for us.
Good evening, Mr. Holtman, Mr. Grasky.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Administrator. Hello, everyone else.
Hey, Chuck, how you doing?
Doing well,
Yes.
thank you. You're back in town, Mr. Schmaltz?
Oh, yeah, for a long time.
Till next winter.
We may be going somewhere in September, so we'll see. Depends on whether Canada opens up or not.
Yeah.
So far, we've had 2 cruises canceled, so
Wow.
I suspect this Canadian one will be canceled also from what, after talking to him here a couple weeks ago. So we'll wait and see.
Well, good luck.
It'd be nice to get out of here.
Yeah.
Speaking of cruises, I always admire Miss Linda Meyer's painting piece there in the background of the sea. So,
Of the sea.
mhm.
I find it to be very work appropriate.
Right.
It's not quite Emily's background. It's not the district, but it is water
Uh-huh.
related.
Yeah,
Mhm.
look at that. Wow.
Wow. Who is that person joining us?
Is that a painting? Did you paint it?
Jackie. Hello, Jackie.
I don't know if the audio is fully connected yet for her.
Okay.
Oh, and here's Kevin Bean.
Yeah, Kevin should join us.
And here's Jen.
All right. I'll let everyone get connected here. And looks like the recording is on. All right. I will call the regular board meeting of the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District to order this Thursday, April 22nd. First item of business is a setting of the meeting agenda, and I know we have at least one change. Item B under old business will be replaced with the Greenway Corridor visioning discussion this evening. Dr. Funke had a conflict in her schedule, so we'll move this to probably, my understanding is possibly to a workshop. Is that the case? Right.
Yes, Mr. President, that was the other thing I would like to discuss with the board is possibly scheduling that perhaps the next week, Thursday. The other piece on there is new business item B. the 2020 audit report and presentation. So we wanted to double, triple check our accounting in our escrow account. And along the way, just because there's been transition in there, there were a couple pieces that we needed to correct and then make sure we were all in agreement on. We've arrived at that, but the auditor has not been able to conclude the report, and we want to make sure that the treasurer has a little time to review it. So if next Thursday would work for the managers, either daytime, depending on Manager Oaknick's, kind of over lunch, or again, an evening one, 5 or usual 6:30, that would work on our end. And then we'd still be done before the end of April to have the audited numbers in our report to the state of Minnesota.
What date is that, Mike?
9th.
What's the
Correct.
date?
The 29th.
We have a Forest Lake Association annual meeting rehearsal that night at 7. So you think we'll be finished by then?
Well, it depends on when we start. If we start at 5, or if we try to do it over the lunch hour, depending on Manager Oaknick's schedule.
'Cause you're
Sorry.
involved and I'm involved in both of us are involved in that 7 o'clock meeting if we can do it. So
I have an all-day meeting on the 29th.
I don't know what my schedule, I don't have my calendar right here, but I think I'm available on the 29th, but what time would you be able to start, Jen, if on the 29th, if that was possible?
We could also go to Tuesday, the 27th, or Wednesday.
I'm gonna run and get my calendar so I
I'm
can.
gonna run, get my calendar too. I'll be right back. See, I had on the 29th, we had a 10 to 2 o'clock meeting on, a 12 to 1 o'clock meeting on the 10-year plan. Is that still on or not?
Mr. President, managers, I kind of wanted to talk about that too. Just thinking about timing, we had suggested the date of Tuesday, May 18th for a workshop to go over the comments received in the 60-day period, but we didn't have an exact time scheduled yet. So while we have calendars out, if we want to look at that date and pick a time, that would be great.
Okay.
What day works for Jen? I've got a soil health webinar all day on the 29th that I signed up for. I can always change that. I'm sure they will have it again, but
I could do it on the 27th. It'd have to be later in the day, though. I have to be at the airport over lunch, so.
Manager Oaknick says she's available on the 28th and the 29th at 5 p.m.
Okay. I'm available on the 28th or the 29th at 5 p.m.
yeah,
So am I, as long as we're finished by 7.
How about if we do it on the 28th at 5 p.m.?
That's fine with me. I've got the rest of the evening then.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is Megan available that day?
Oh. I don't know.
There's that.
I'll text her.
Okay.
Did we say the 28th at 5?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm open on May 18th as well. I don't have any appointments that day right now.
I'm okay on May 18th also.
Yep. So am I.
So what time would you prefer to do that, Emily?
I want to be able to, I'd kind of rather avoid doing an evening one just in case we want to go for a couple hours, take a break, come back. We haven't received a lot of comments yet, but just in case a lot come in and we want to have a big discussion, kind of like workshops we've done for the plan in the past.
Okay.
I want to have plenty of time.
Does 11 to 1 work for you, Jen? Is that okay?
That should be fine.
Okay. Let's put it in for 11 to 1, and then if we need to come back, we could, like, say, take a break, come back at 2 or something, and hit it for another hour or 2.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we could send the comments out ahead of time so we could go over them, that would be a big help.
Yeah. If
And we
you
can
get
even reply to those and then just consolidate the responses.
Okay, that sounds good.
Because they're all going to be in by April 30th, right, Emily?
Yes, that's the deadline.
So we've got plenty of time then to put those together and send them out, and we can actually respond and then just have a session where we can just, as much as possible, correlate the responses and decide what we want to do.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got 2 changes to tonight's agenda. Then we're going to defer item 7B, the audit report and presentation, and item 8B, the Little Comfort Lake Diagnostic Study, both of those to the workshop on April 28th. And then we will replace item 8B with the Greenway Corridor discussion this evening. Is that correct?
Well, I have the Lake Association grant that I had put together. I sent it to Mike and Barrett. Did that get out to the managers? Mike? Did you guys receive it?
Yes, I looked through the first one, then you sent the revised piece. I have
Yeah.
not reviewed that. We can start that conversation. I can just pull it up. I have some
But
additional
they-
idea.
Managers haven't seen it though? You haven't sent
Right.
it out to them? Pardon me?
No, that's correct.
Okay. All
Can
right.
we-
Why don't we, can we add that to the 28th meeting? Shouldn't
We could
take too long.
at least
Mhm.
introduce it there. Sure, let's do that. Yep. Okay, any other changes to tonight's agenda then, other than those dropping item 7B and then adding a new item 8B after we drop the old item 8B? All right, then a motion to approve the agenda with the changes is in order.
I'll make
move.
that.
All right. Motion's made. Someone want a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Smalls,
Aye.
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right, consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. Any issues with any of those items?
I still haven't made the corrections on the February ones. We got those at the end of March. So I will just have you go ahead and approve those, and I can send the corrections or bring the corrections to another meeting.
Okay. All right,
That's a motion to accept the consent agenda.
all right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right, public open forum. It doesn't look like we have any members of the public here this evening. So we'll move on to the Citizen Advisory Committee update.
Mr. President, managers, the CAC was finally able to meet again after a few months of skipped meetings. The main topic of discussion was the watershed management plan, the official 60-day draft. The CAC had some discussion on it, but they had no formal comments to submit. The other thing the CAC discussed was the possibility of starting a rotation of a chair for the CAC. They have been without a formal chairperson for over 2 years now. So Mike brought up that idea of potentially rotating, and the CAC seemed responsive to that. Other than that, I have no other updates.
Any questions for Jessica? All right, thanks, Jessica. Aquatic invasive species update.
Hello, Mr. President, managers. Can everyone hear me first of all?
Yes.
All right, always have to check. For this update, I don't have a whole lot. The past few weeks have just been kind of getting ready for the season, but I do have a couple things to share. That'll be real quick. First of all, Moody and Shields Lake areas were deactivated on March 29th, and DO levels, or dissolved oxygen levels, were looking really good this year compared to last year. I think it was just, the weather conditions kept those DOs high, and the aerators definitely helped out as well. So that was good to see. Earlier this week, Blaine and I went out to Bone Lake and installed stop logs at the Bone Lake inlet. And again, our plan for the season is going to be leaving the outlet completely open and let that be a free flowing system. The horizontal grate on that outlet is sufficient to be a cart barrier. And we're just going to let it flow freely again, just to prevent any flooding issues that we had, I believe, in 2019 or early last year. So zebra mussel plates were delivered on Monday. We have quite a few volunteers again on Bone Lake. Again, we haven't found any zebra mussels since the initial discovery, but we got a handful of volunteers out there that'll be helping us again this year. We also did a little more outreach for Forest Lake, and I got a couple more volunteers. Steve McCoven, and I may have mentioned this before, mentioned that he has a bit of an unpublished way of possibly calculating the water clarity improvements from the zebra mussel population. But it depends on how many volunteers we can get for that program. Again, I did get a few more, but we're working on getting a couple more volunteers in that program, but it's off to a good start. Curleaf pondweed treatments. So Steve McComas actually went out a couple days ago and performed delineations for Comfort, Moody, and Shields Lake. He'll be waiting for Forest and Bone Lake just because historically those two lakes have grown in a little bit later than the other ones. So I suspect sometime next week he'll be out to do those. But out of the first 3 delineations, Shields Lake was the only one that he recommended needs treatment. Surprisingly, Moody didn't, even though for the last 2 years we've been treating that. This year, for whatever reason, it just didn't have much growth. There is some growth, but it's not enough to warrant any sort of treatment. And then again, Comfort Lake, which has been the same for the last handful of years, doesn't warrant any treatment. And then the last update is that the district is currently hiring watercraft inspectors. Jessica and I performed some interviews last week, and we sent out some offer letters at the end of last week, and we're currently hiring a few. I think even after these offer letters go out, we're still going to be looking for a few more. So I don't know if we'll have the full 8 like we want at the beginning of the season, but we're going to do a little more outreach and hopefully have a full team ready to go here shortly. And then I guess one last thing now that I'm thinking about that I'll mention is that the AIS behavior change grant that I've been working on with the DNR, we actually did start purchasing the materials to build the bait disposal bins that I've been talking about. We have a final sign design and sticker design that are off to the printers. So hopefully by next regular board meeting, I'll have some photos of those bins constructed and to be able to share with everyone. So we're pretty excited to get those out and see if we can change some behavior around that. And with that, that's all I have unless there's any questions.
Questions for Garrett? All right, thanks, Garrett.
Thank you.
All right, new business, item 7A, permit 21-006, 2021 Wyoming Street Improvements.
Yes, Mr. President and Manager. So yeah, we have City of Wyoming's 2021 street improvement projects. They're reconstructing several streets in the city, but only one small segment of Glen Oak Drive falls within Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. Jessica, if you could pull up the first figure there. Yeah, so there you can see the red highlighted areas are all the streets they're working on, but only the one furthest to the east there is within Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. You can move on to the next figure. So basically this is a rural section road. It's going to remain a rural section road. Oftentimes a project like this wouldn't even trigger stormwater management, but they do need to come in and do some subgrade corrections to the road. So it is triggering the stormwater rule. However, with those nice swales on either side of the street and leaving it as rural section, that in turn will meet the district's volume control requirements. And of course, rate isn't an issue because they're actually slightly decreasing impervious surface. So it's meeting the stormwater requirements. They also have a detailed erosion control plan, so it's meeting those requirements. So I'm recommending approval with issuance upon receipt of maintenance agreement for the roadside swales.
Any questions for Greg?
This doesn't really pertain to this project, but when we're meeting with the cities, do we, on road projects like this, do we encourage water quality enhancements?
Yep, definitely.
Okay, and they know, you're talking to them about our program, right? Our VMP program?
Yeah, the cost share, yep.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, in this
good.
Yep, in this case, I feel like they're getting really good treatment with what's out there.
Mhm.
So I think we're
Yeah, I
doing
just
good.
wanted to make sure that that was on the checklist when
Yep.
we're meeting with our cities.
Yep, and
No, I
guess
thought this looked good. I'm going to offer the motion as presented with the conditions that Greg's already talked about.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right. Next item is the 7C, Forest Lake Curly Leaf Pondweed Treatment Contract.
Hey, Mr. President, could I make one more comment before we move on?
Sure.
Just wanted to kind of touch on Jackie's comment about encouraging stormwater treatment with road projects. We do also have a permit in for Forest Lake, a road project. It's a reclamation project, so it doesn't trigger the stormwater rule, but I am trying to encourage them to at least, it is really tight, so and with the way the road is set up, it'd be hard to get BMPs in there, but I am trying to encourage them to at least get some sump manholes put in there on the structures that they're replacing, so we can at least get some removals from that area. I guess we'll see where that goes. I'm hoping they'll be receptive to that. I sent out an incomplete notice and asked them to at least consider that. So yes, Jackie, I am trying to do that, and I guess we'll see where that goes on the Forest Lake
Sure.
project.
Where are those projects?
That's south of Forest Lake. I think it's called, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Inden, IDEN Avenue. And then a couple little small streets off of that. Again, it's a relatively small
Mhm.
project, but there is
Yep.
some,
Every little
Stormwater.
drop helps.
there is some, some stormwater pipes that are going straight to the lake, and it sure would be nice to at least get some removals before it goes into the lake. So,
Why can't we mandate that? I don't want to use that word, but why can't we make that something that they have to do? If it's direct
Well-
drainage to the lake and there's no treatment between that input source and the outflow point, why can't we say that they have to have treatment?
well, I think you'd have to go back to our rules discussion. And if you remember the strong push by the cities that they wanted to be able to reconstruct their roads without the stormwater requirements. So there was a lot of back and forth on that.
Yeah, but that's not really the point of it all, though. The point is to clean up these waters. And so just as we did on Broadway, we paid for that portion. That wasn't something that they had to do. So if that's something that needs to happen from an engineering standpoint to clean up the waters, then why can't we incorporate that kind of thing?
Well,
It doesn't cost them anything.
That's what I'm trying to make happen, I guess.
Well, if you tell them that they don't have to pay for it.
Well, I'd like to encourage them to pay for it first, but if the
Yeah.
board would like me to offer to pay for it, I can do that as well.
If that's the sticking point, if the funds are the issue, then I think we should at least have the opportunity to weigh in on that question. So I like the fact that you're encouraging them to pay for it first, but let's not let that stand in the way if there really is some benefit to the treatment. And
Yep.
it doesn't hold up their project, right? We don't want to delay their project either. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that input. That was part of why I wanted to
Mhm.
bring this up, to make sure I was kind of going down the right track. And yeah, I feel like the city should want to do that. I mean, and protect that resource. But if they come back and say, no, we don't want to pay for it, I will.
Mhm.
offer
I'm
up
not
the
that
offer.
familiar with MS4 requirements, but I thought the whole point of that was to force these cities that didn't want to do anything about it into better habits as far as clean water is concerned.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
Isn't that ultimately the point of MS4?
Yep, that is the point, but it doesn't necessarily dictate exactly how they have to go about.
Yeah, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned, waiting around for municipalities to become compliant is not going to help the waters. And whether we pay for it or they get the money through our cooperative grant program, it doesn't really matter to me. It's still a budget expense for us. So the ultimate goal is to clean up the waters. Let's not let these opportunities pass us by. So thank you for bringing them up to the cities, but as part of your report, make that a recommendation that you can qualify and quantify the addition of this filter system. Is that what you called it?
Well, I was suggesting that they just at a minimum put some manholes. There's
Mhm.
really limited opportunity for actual BMPs with the way the road is laid out and
Yeah.
how close it is to the groundwater table. But it just seems like we should at least have some sump manholes to catch stuff, and then they can come with their vac truck. And
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what we ended up putting up when that turnaround came in to the downtown area. We redirected water flow into the park area so that it stayed drier. And then I know we had a discussion about, they look like old wash tubs, and they catch all the plastic and the paper debris and all of that kind of thing.
Yep,
and then-
Same idea,
Okay.
same idea, but on a much bigger scale for that.
Okay,
project.
all right, good. Good.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's great.
So thanks for letting me pipe in there, John.
Yep. Thanks for clarifying that for us. It's good to get our perspective on that. Thanks. All right, curly leaf pondweed control contracts for Forest Lake.
Mr. President, managers, I think, well, you have the memo in front of us, but Garrett's been working on this as well. So if you have any questions for him, but I think it's pretty well laid out.
Any questions for Mike or Garrett?
The only concern I have is that we're limiting it to 70,000. Now, we expect it to be 70,000 or under, but it could be more than that. We have another 92,000 that's not committed for Forest Lake. If we limit it to 70,000, we need $85,000. We won't have the time to turn it around quick enough to meet the temperature treatment requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So we're taking a little bit of risk by putting that on there. So it bothers me a little bit. I think, do we want to take that risk, I guess? Because it could be a big year this year because there's a lot of curly starting early, as we pointed out earlier. So, and Steve hasn't been out there yet to take a look at it. I just don't want to back us into a corner where we miss an opportunity to do a full treatment.
Well,
Something that the board should consider.
why don't we take that $20,000 that was excluded for Moody, Bones, Shields, and Comfort and just make it 80,000? Would that cover it?
I think I could chime in here. You could do that. I'm just pulling up the quotes. So I got quotes for both Aquathol K and Dicot, and we're leaning towards Dicot, but I need to get permission from the DNR. But if we weren't, when I received the quotes for the Aquathol K, which is much more expensive per acre, for Forest Lake, we did that at what Steve McComas said would be the absolute max that we could treat, which is 110 acres. Which in the past, he mentioned to district staff that at 110 acres of treatment, you should be able to get full lake control. So through the Lake Management Incorporated at 110 acres with Aquathol K, they quoted us at just below $65,000. So that should cover it. That $70,000 is just for Forest Lake.
Right. So 70,000 should be adequate.
Yeah, if we go with Steve's recommendation of a max of 110. Now, I don't know where that 110 came from, because in previous years we've traded as much as we can go up to 215,000 based upon the 15% of the littoral area. But if I guess we still have 80,000 that's not committed in the budget, I guess is what I'm saying. So I guess the 110,000 is, are we confident on that number? I mean, that's the first time I've heard this. So doing a calculation, so when we treated 165,000, he was saying, 165 acres, he was saying that we overtreated in those years then basically. Is that correct, Garrett?
I wasn't around for his recommendation. I was reading past reports, but 110 acres is what he calculated would be full lake control with Aquathol.
Okay.
And if it would make the board more comfortable, they can certainly up the budget. And if his delineation next week comes back with, an insane amount of curly pondweed, we can have that discussion with Steve if he now thinks that we can treat more than 110 acres. And then we would have
I'm willing to try.
flexibility.
I'm willing to try 110 acres, I guess. The only risk we take is that we may not get as much treatment as we want. But if that's what the new calculation shows, and I know that Steve's always advancing his knowledge base based upon experience, it's something that we would be awfully nice to know, because then we wouldn't have to treat 165 if we thought we had to do that much. Save us a lot of money. I just don't want to be backed in a corner, but if you made the calculation and we should be good at 65,000, then I'm fine with that, I guess.
Does it matter, Garrett, whether it's Dicot or Aquathol K that the treatment is done with? Does that change the number of acres that achieve full lake control?
Cost.
It will dramatically change the cost. I think
Right.
Dicot's like a fifth of the price, just off the top of my head. And Steve McComas over the phone just a couple weeks ago when I was putting this together mentioned that he believes it's just as effective, if not more effective than Aquathol K. And then another reason for going that route is that we've been treating with the same herbicide for many years, so we're trying to avoid that herbicide
Yeah.
resistance.
Good.
I don't know whether or not he would recommend going more than 110 acres with that particular herbicide, but I would assume that it's he would limit it. at the
Isn't
same.
Aquathol more targeted?
Um,
The Dicot
these are-
is a broad spectrum herbicide, correct? And Aquathol K is more targeted to specifically Eurasian milfoil or AIS plants. Is that correct or not? That was my understanding.
I would have to dig through my notes to have a more confident answer for you on, how targeted each one is. I've just been deferring to my conversations with Steve McComas over the phone and what his thoughts are on each one. And
Mhm.
what he said was that he thought it was just as effective, if not more effective. But I did put that, that contingency is that the DNR has to approve it. Just because of whatever reason he mentioned, I can't remember. So it's not a guaranteed, but it would be much cheaper. And we are leaning that route just for that herbicide resistance part of the whole equation.
Yep. Okay.
Well, hearing that new information, I guess if that's what Steve recommending and we can save a lot of money and still maintain the kind of control we need, I think we should try it then.
Yeah.
We're still $5,000 under what you expect to spend, so we got a little cushion there. Unless you wanted to add 10,000 to it just to cover ourselves to make it 80. But other than that, I don't think we have to do much more than that.
Well, it's a not to exceed price, so if you want to change it to 80, then we've got a little more cushion if something does come up. So-
Yeah, why don't we just do that? Because we don't want to be backed into a corner. It's a new thing, and if it works, it's going to be a great step forward, because now we've got a new, more cost-effective alternative to alternate back and forth with. So
Right.
there's a lot of value in that. We should at least try it, for sure.
Okay.
Emily's got a note up here about these
Oh,
emmets and are not particularly targeted. Okay, it's broad. They're both broad spectrums according to her.
okay.
Contact herbicides and not targeted to a certain species.
Okay. All right. 24D. Okay.
So I'll move to change the motion to 80,000 max.
Okay. Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? We'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz.
Aye.
Manager Oaknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right. All right, then the One Watershed, One Plan Implementation Services Contract.
Mr. President, managers, Emily is available, but also Manager Schmaltz and Manager Anderson can probably speak to this some as well, since we have Manager Anderson on one of the subcommittees, but go ahead, Emily.
I don't really have anything to add unless there's questions. We've got the recommended action there. I'm just available for questions.
Any comments, Manager Anderson or Manager Schmaltz on what's here?
No, this is the contract that we went over last time and that we had this topic on the agenda. So I don't think there's anything different. It's a little bit more refined maybe, but I know the contract language changed somewhat, but Emily and Jessica were always listed as paid members of that collaboration effort.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to authorize the administrator on advance of council to enter into the agreement with Chisago Soil and Water Conservation District for services of district staff to implement one watershed, one plan, work plan tasks with corresponding reimbursement to the district.
A second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
I,
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right. Let's move on to item 8A, old business, the 2020 year in review annual report and progress report.
President, managers, yeah, I guess similar. Emily's been spearheading the effort on this along with Jessica's support. Well, I guess staff have contributed in a variety of ways as well, reviewing and various components, but I think again, we just can, through our adaptive management and process improvement, these reports continue to be improved upon and really communicate a great story about what we're doing.
I only had 3 comments on the annual report and the progress report. When those needle graphs are presented on where we're at with the goals, toward goals, removal of phosphorus, the lower head or subhead is district goal. And we talked about this last year and then again through discussions through last summer on the 10-year plan. That's really a district sustainability goal. And the more we keep using that phrase, the more the purpose of that higher limit or that higher removal goal is going to sink in with the public. So I don't want anyone reading this and asking why are we doing that? Why are we having higher goals than the state? And this is the subject, this is the subject matter discussion that we had, ongoing for the last year, whenever reports like this came out. So let's make sure that we have agreement to call that the district sustainability goal that allows growth within our municipalities and our townships and so forth. And we're still going to have clean water. So let's make sure we're constantly underscoring that purpose. And that was in both of those reports. But anytime that needle graph shows or is shown, we should make sure that that title is correct. And then the other one was the cost per pounds of pollutant removed. I know I talked to Emily about this last year on the annual report, and we talk about this so much that I thought it was a good idea for us to have a chart in that report that shows us, on each project, what the cost per pound removal is. And then the cover photo, just make sure it's different than last year's. I didn't go back to last year, but it looked familiar, so maybe it's different. But whenever we do a new report, we've got so many great pictures of our water bodies now. Let's make sure that we're using a variety of images. And so that helps distinguish one year from the next when you've got them sitting in your file cabinet or on the bookshelf. Those were the only ones.
Any other comments about the reports?
if we're going to use a new term like district sustainability goal, I think we need to make sure we define that or explain what that means, or it's first introduced, because we've done that with a lot of other terms pretty effectively. I just don't think we should let that hang out there without clarifying what that really means or why we're doing it. It's basically to get to a goal that's sustainable based upon pre-settlement conditions, right?
Yeah, we did that. We did that in a slide presentation that we worked on last year. I don't remember who it was for, but maybe it was for talking to our communities. I think that's what it was. When we had our community meetings, we had this discussion, and so we changed that language at that time, but we just need to maintain that. And I agree with you, that explanation was made in that presentation, but if we can just pull that out of that presentation and add it to the reports, that would be good. We want to keep hammering that consistent message.
Yeah, do we have that same definition and usage in the watershed management plan this time around then? We should probably check that out too.
You mean the 10-year plans, John?
Yep, the 10-year plan, yep.
Okay.
I think
So
it
maybe-
is mentioned, and we
Mhm.
can kind of expand on it of what does sustainability mean in this context?
Right, and put it in the glossary, that would be also a good place for it, so, yep. Perfect. All right, any other
Mr. Pres-
comments? Yes.
Yeah, Mr. President, managers, I'm just kind of thinking about Manager Anderson's comment there. The other thing about the state standard is that we know it's the demarcation between impaired and unimpaired. So really it's a minimum standard.
Mhm.
You know, Keewatin is at a, you know, within the state standard, it's just a higher water quality. So I think we could look at how we could help define that too, so people don't, so they understand that is just that, it's a minimum standard. And so the sustainable standard that we're looking for through our St. Croix Watershed Research Station analysis of the historical lake water quality goals, we're trying to align them to them, then provide some additional context, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, any other comments on the annual report and the year in review progress report?
Say, I guess one question, I have a request to be made. Once we get the changes made in the progress report, I'd like to have a printed copy front and back, because I like to keep that with me at all times, because it's, well, not at all times, but when I'm involved with a public and that, it's a great reference point to have and to show people what we're doing and why we're doing it, et cetera. So it's kind of like your Rajos Theris, you know, it's right there, or QuickBooks, whatever it is. So anyway.
Yeah, good. Okay. Someone want to move to approve the plans or the
I'll
report?
move to approve all three reports as stated with the changes recommended by Manager Anderson.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion?
And Mr.
All right.
President, managers, yeah, it just occurred to me that the numbers in the current report, the watershed, the annual report going to the state currently has unaudited numbers. They will not be audited until we approve the audit, receive that report. So maybe and maybe Chuck could guide the board through that, but maybe it would be conditional upon approval of the audit for that particular one.
Okay, so we should probably amend or update the motion then.
I can update my motion to include the fact that we include only audited numbers when they're available.
Okay. Will that do it, Chuck?
Mr. Chair, I'm just reminding myself here, the report is due. The report is due at the end of this month. The audit is not due until the end of June.
Correct.
So the report, I guess that you could, since the intent is to have the audited numbers on the 29th, the board would accept that, right? And then to put those into the annual report if necessary, and then file it by the 30th.
Right.
Is that the plan, Mike?
Yes, Mr. Holman. Mhm.
Okay. Well, so then you would also just, yeah, your motion would just indicate that the final audited numbers would be put in the report.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Is this on the audit, John? I lost connectivity. I had to come in.
Yeah,
Right.
we're talking about the 3 reports, and we have to update them with final audit numbers, which we won't have until the 28th.
Okay,
But these reports need to be in by the 30th. So Steve amended the motion to include approve the reports with updated audit numbers when we obtain them.
Okay.
Before we submit them. So that's the new motion.
okay, I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? All right, I will call the question. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Smalls,
Aye.
Manager Oakney,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right. Now we're moving on to the new item 8B, the Greenway Corridor discussion.
Mr. President, managers, so we have Kevin Bean from EOR here this evening to help guide this discussion, who's been assisting the district and the other EOR staff this topic. So there's a scope in front of you, and I'm trying to pull it up here myself with 2 particular items. The board has already heard the presentation and from Mr. Bean in March. And these are 2 follow-on items that we are looking to commence. That being said, we do have a senior land management coordinator that is be starting in 3rd week of May. And that would look to lead a number of these efforts as far as the district staff goes. But we feel that there's a number of things that we can start working on, or have EOR start working on, that would help facilitate that. And then we'll start coordinating meetings for June and July with our partners on these topics.
Okay, any questions for Kevin or Mike on the proposed tasks and the estimated hours and costs?
The only thing I have a little concern is that all the meetings are to be coordinated by district staff, and there's quite a few meetings, and you know how difficult it is to get the cities together with this stuff. So I'm wondering whether we have enough manpower to get this done by June 30th, which is the proposed time schedule, or whether we need to look at some other options to get some support on this. Mike, you're probably in the best position to say that. You got a brand new person coming on who will be starting mid-May, and that only gives them 6 weeks to get all this done. And he doesn't even know the people in the city at all. So I don't know. To me, it seems like it's a long shot that we're going to make it by June 30th.
Well,
The
I
other
think
question,
that,
the second
think-
question I have is that, might as well bring them both out at the same time. We had talked before about trying to work in this idea of a new facility. And I'm still not quite clear whether that fits in with the green space, or whether that's going to be a separate project outside the green space with the school system, and et cetera. So maybe you could clarify that also, Mike, as we get into this discussion.
Sure. I think these are really just introductory pieces, and I think, whether Kevin or Cecilia or anybody else wants to chime in on it, they can. But I mean, this is a long-term effort. This will be just some initial meetings, but we're going to at least introduce the concepts and the topic, and then, as has been discussed, and Manager Anderson in particular brings this up, we're the technical experts for we want to just ask them what are things that we would like to, or what would they like to see us participate in terms of future planning. So they're all, all the entities are at different places. So that's going to be certainly a part of that. And whether or not we're done by the end of June will be more on the, I guess, that responsibility will be carried by the district staff rather than EOR. But we have coordination meetings already. So we've got a couple already scheduled in May. And I've told a couple of the Scandia and Wyoming already know about us engaging in this conversation about green white corridors. And actually Scandia is probably farther ahead than anyone. They've been meeting on this parks, and remember that area back in December north of Bone Lake. They've sketched out some drawings of what the concepts of what they would like to see and things like that. So I think they're ready to go, even though we're not necessarily including them in the scope, but it is presently right now. There's just a variety of things that are overlapping. We're talking about the H&H modeling work. We're talking about stormwater project with the city and the downtown. There's the meeting Monday evening that the city wants to, they've invited people to participate in. We'll be there. I think we'll see if EUR can attend that as well. Kind of walk around, because we'll obviously have an impact on what the stormwater capacity or that system would look like, but also just hear from people what they're thinking about in terms of green space and corridor, even along whether it's the Hardwood Creek Trail or otherwise. I think on the facility, I think that needs to be a completely different conversation at this time. So I have a meeting scheduled Tuesday with the school district again. And I think their needs are going to be different. I think that we need to start looking at the facility just on our own. And then when we get to that point, think about design. And we started that already conversation with EOR. Kevin's been assisting with that. Constructing something that we could add on to, basically, so make sure that we have something that would a space that would be compatible for some additional public community space, environmental education and things like that. So so they're definitely parallel, and there's a lot of synergy between these various things. But I think the important thing is to start the conversation with the city staffs and then invite them to inform their councils, and then see at what point they would either want to have one of us attend the meetings for the township or a council, or for the county perhaps even, and then or have a joint meeting with the board, which we've done on several occasions in the past with our local partners. So.
Yeah, I think it's important. I agree with everything Mike said. I think it's important to keep in mind that this is a preliminary plan for this concept. And the whole point of it is to provide our government partners with a visual of what it is that we're talking about. So it's not a final plan. If you know how the development process works, there's a sketch plan typically, and then there's a preliminary plan that has a little bit more detail. And then all the engineering is done and the layouts change and so on. And then you get the final plan. And there might be iterations after that as well. But this is the first step to making the concept visual for the people that we've been talking to. And I've had meetings with Wyoming City and with our representative on the Chisago County Board. And the concept is great. I mean, you talk about it, the concept is great, but they need something tangible to really understand what it is we're talking about. So that's what this step is. And, I think we need to move on it. And I don't think having a new person is going to impact that one way or another. The staff is not going to push that person out to full capacity on day one. So there'll be someone working with him until he's fully trained. And I expect, that for Wyoming and Chisago County, John and I will be involved in those presentations. I expected that you, Steve, would be involved with Forest Lake, certainly, along with our professionals, of course, and staff, but, and then Jen, of course, with Bone Lake. So you want that local representative face on all of this. So I think it's great that we're moving to this step, and I don't have any questions about it. I'm gonna make the motion to accept. No, I can't move this up, so I can't really see what the motion is. So if somebody can do that for me. There's 2 or 3 parts to this.
Right.
Are there 3 or 2?
2 tasks.
2
Task
tasks,
A and
okay.
task B.
All right, so, and each one has a separate motion?
Well, there's no motion, suggested motion given, but there's an estimated hours and cost for each of the 2 parts. And
That's
so-
okay. I'll just reference this Greenway visioning. I will make a motion to approve task A and B on the Greenway visioning EOR number 00376-0195 as presented on 4/22/2021. And it's the revised 4/20/2021 document.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. I just, as long as Kevin's here, I wanted to ask him if he had any comments or if he wanted to weigh in with any words of wisdom for us here on the work.
I do not, Mr. President and managers. I wanted to wish everybody happy Earth Day. As far as if it drags out past, June 30th, that's fine. We can accommodate that. I was just trying to set an aggressive schedule so that we can keep some momentum with this. But, we will move at the pace at which, meetings can be scheduled.
Great. Okay. All right.
Managers, I do expect that based on the interactions or communications I've had with Scandia residents and their staff and park board, that we will probably bring something similar back for them in the not too distant future.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion? We have a motion and a second. All right. I will call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Smalls,
Aye.
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right, thank you. All right. Reports of staff. Mike.
Mr. President, managers, I think maybe the one thing that comes to mind right away is my email that I sent out this morning based off the early morning communication from the Clean Water Council, getting close to wrapping up the session. I noted to all of you where the House, Senate, and the governor's office are on different things. And one of the things I noted was my, I guess, discouragement or disappointment that when I brought up the notion of metrics with a senior Bowser meeting with Metro administrators, that it was largely dismissed, which I found more troubling than discouraging, I guess. So, and I think that our newly approved annual report and progress report are good candidates for submission to either elected officials or the governor's office. And I would like to work with a couple of board members for that. I saw a couple of responses. So other than that, I think the other thing is there's a link in the administrator's report here for the board to submit. So that's anyone. You don't need to be in Chisago County to go on and look at that survey. Anyone, because I'm sure most of us have driven across that, or I think all of us have through that area. So these are, both state and local dollars being combined for this bigger project, and they have a couple of concepts. So that's maybe the biggest thing there. And then also that the deadline for the managers for the mod board have been extended. And I think you had received that also. I don't remember what the date is here, but I don't know if anyone was considering that.
Isn't that an outstate district, though? It's, that position was supposed to be for the outstate watersheds.
Right, well, they just haven't been receiving any applications, so,
Mhm.
and whether or not they consider Chisago, I mean, Chisago County itself, I know what you're clearly stating, and that CLFLWD is a metro watershed district, but Chisago is, is considered not a metro county, so I think it would be sort of cutting hair, or,
Mhm.
there, but I mean,
I see what you're getting at.
yeah, so, but the other piece, right, just going through some of the staff pieces. So our new land management person has started as of last Friday. You will remember him as Aiden Reed. He was our seasonal tech for a couple of years, and he's just completely, he will finish his graduate work next week. He started on a part-time basis, and he will be full-time on April 30th going forward. But his research and degree is in soil health, so he will be leading all of our efforts in that area, both in our subwatershed analysis, our own Lake Swa piece, but also then really getting out there and working with the farm community on a much more individualized basis, because our experience with the two SWCDs is that they have very limited capacity even to do conservation planning, and they have no one on staff trained in the soil health area to provide that service to our residents that are farming out there. So we look forward to having Aiden on staff and working through a bunch of those things. We've completed interviews, or another round of interviews for a office manager position and or person, and I have signed an offer letter as of today. So hopefully I will have some news to bring at the next board meeting on that position.
What position was that, Mike? I'm sorry, I was writing them.
Office manager.
Oh, okay, good. Mhm.
Yep. So I think we're good. Yeah, staff has started. I think today was the first day of monitoring on the lakes. So that's been out. I guess a thing in progress, but we're finally there as far as having our, not both the equipment and the staff to go out and do that and make observations on behalf of the district and communicate with residents about things that we're doing, but also be able to bring information back to us and the rest of the staff and to the board. So.
And take beautiful pictures for our library.
Yes, Jessica shared one this morning of them with the boat and the truck and equipment ready to leave the parking lot area. So that was nice.
I was talking about our water assets,
Yes.
Oh.
not our people assets.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we would consider them to be beautiful as well. So
Yes.
then Jessica's been working both with our Jack McKenzie and on some Turf Talk, getting stuff set up online. And Jessica, you have it was already, you attended the Lakes International Academy to do a program with them.
Yeah, so that was today and tomorrow. So Jason and I went into 3 4th grade classrooms today, and then tomorrow Trey is joining with me to do 3 more 4th grade classrooms.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So those are some of the big things. Otherwise, the staff has reported on the AIS, and our projects we're moving forward on a number of those things, and Blaine has played a big role in helping to coordinate that, both with landowners, myself, and EOR and the other staff. So we're moving along.
Good. Any questions for Mike? All right. Thanks, Mike. EOR. Greg, any updates for us?
Yeah, just a few quick things. We've already had 2 water quality sampling events on March 24th and April 8th. So we've had staff out taking samples at various sites throughout the district for those events. Megan's been busy working on a lot of coordination and prep with recent Clean Water Fund and 319 targeted watershed grants. We did a site utility survey and some coordination meetings with DNR, both DNR and Washington County for our County Road 50 iron enhanced sand filter project. Still in the process of figuring out exactly where that project is going to go, but it seems like we're making some good progress with a potential site there. So hopefully that'll get unstuck soon. And then our Bone Lake Northeast Wetland project, that one's pretty much a go. So we've been out doing some survey work on that and hoping we can build that project this winter. That's all I got.
Any questions for Greg? All right, thanks, Greg. Smith Partners, Chuck, anything to report?
No, nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
All right. Treasurer's report, Steve.
Yes, we had income of $652,893.40, and the bulk of that was the fourth disbursement of our loan. So that's why it was so high. As far as the expenses for the month, we have expenses of $162,208.89. And I'm asking for the board to accept and approve payment for those expenses. And Jessica, I just want to make sure those are the right numbers because Nancy and I were going back. Do I have the right copy?
Yes, I double checked those before the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the treasurer's report and pay the bills.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. The only discussion is who's going to sign the checks tomorrow.
I can't do it tomorrow. I'm on a 4-hour block with interviews for the Lower St. Croix outreach person.
Okay.
It starts at 8 to noon. So can you do it, John?
Yes, I should be able to. I have to be away from my house all day tomorrow, so I will stop over after breakfast tomorrow morning. So what time will you be in the office, Jessica, or will somebody be in the office?
So I'll be in the office from about 8:30 until I need to go to the school at 11.
Okay. What time do you normally get there, Steve?
I'll work around your schedule, John. I'm more open than you are. So tell me when you'll be in there. I'll be coming in 20 minutes after you leave.
Well, let's say 9:30 for me.
Okay. So I'll come in around 10 o'clock and that way Jessica can still get out in time. Is that okay, Jessica?
That sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, and okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Schmaltz,
Aye.
Manager Oknick,
Aye.
Manager Spence, aye. All right. Report of officers and managers. Manager Oknick, anything to report?
Nothing new, thanks.
Manager Schmaltz.
Only question for Manager Anderson, are we all set for Monday? Is there anything special we have to do before to get ready for Monday? Jackie,
Monday. What's Monday?
isn't that the Lower
no.
St. Croix meeting or is that?
We're not
am I
meeting
weak?
until May. We're not meeting in April.
Oh, that's been canceled. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
been canceled. Okay, I'm glad I
Yep.
checked. Thank you.
Then I
Yep.
guess you're ready. All right,
Yeah, I have nothing else then. Thank you.
all right. Manager Anderson.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I did respond to that Highway 8 survey. I actually found out about it from somebody on the Comfort Lake Association board. So just a reminder, when Jessica's doing those, or excuse me, Emily's doing those weekly Friday emails to us as a board, if there's anything like this that comes up, if you could try to add that kind of stuff too. I know I rely on that Friday report quite a bit. I know Steve does. He's mentioned it at prior meetings, and I'm sure everyone does. So thank you for doing those. They're very helpful. So anything like that would be, that you can bring to our attention would be great. I don't know how long that open house goes on that website, but I'm glad we were informed about it. So if anyone else has any comments to make, I don't know when the end point is, but be sure to go on there and make them. The Metro Mod meeting was on Tuesday night, and there were over 30 people there. So it was very, very well attended. Emily and Mark Dene put together a slideshow that pretty well encapsulated what's happening at the legislature, what the positions are of the Mod organization. And so they're supposed to make that available through the administrators. And I don't know if Mike's gotten his yet, but when that comes out, that might be important to just send to the board directly so that they have access to it. But that really gives you a really good outline. The other conversations were about, what Mod should be. And Mod has taken this position, a policy position, apparently, that the Mod organization is not promoting capacity funding for watershed districts because that's not the intent of the Watershed Legacy Amendment. And obviously, I've been trying to tell them that when the horse has left the barn, you've got to either chase it and get on it and ride it, or you're just going to be stuck back in the barn there. And so every position that that has been taken primarily by Bowser, but some of the other water agencies as well, to turn this into this major watershed that we're dealing with, the Lower St. Croix, they're basically around the river systems, the big river systems. So this one watershed, one plan, these larger watershed districts is in statute. I mean, it's the law. It's what everything is going by. All of the decisions are being made through the Water Council. And ideas come in, proposals come in through the Water Council. The Water Council vets all of that information in the summer of each year. They have their agenda set by the fall so that they can get it to the proper committees and start talking to the legislators about it. So if we don't understand that process and start working with that process, we're never going to get anywhere. And this idea of not having these measurable outcomes, Bowser has determined a different concept for measurable than we have been operating under. And so we have to embrace whatever is there so that we can stay involved with the disbursement of funds. I mean, that's what it's really all about. And so anyway, I keep working on Mod to get off of that sort of old philosophy, and yet the times have changed. It's like staying with rotary dial phones when everybody's on mobile now. So we'll get there eventually, but I just wanted you to know that that was a great discussion. I think the Zoom meetings are recorded, and so you should be able to go on the Mod website and see a copy of that meeting, and then I encourage you to listen to it. We're also starting district meetings in the outstate regions, and I'm working on that as part of my assignments on the Mod board. And so hopefully those will be done here in the next 3 weeks. And then our outstate people can get on board with these initiatives that are happening at the agency levels. One of the initiatives was creating agency squads so that we could use watershed managers to take over the responsibilities of interacting with agencies that are involved in water law so that we can stay on top of it. We've only got a staff of one person, Emily, and some part-time contractors, so she can't do it all. So that was the the approved concept in January by the MOD board. But what's happened is Emily's been working with the MAWA, the Minnesota Watershed Administrators Association. And Mark Dene is taking that lead, as I understand it, on working with the water agencies. Now that's good. I'm glad it's getting started. But we're going to try to encourage getting managers elected or appointed managers on that on those squads as well. So that's not just the staff perspective, it is the actual citizens that live in each of these watershed districts that are in front of the legislators and in front of the agencies. So what the goal is to work with the agencies so that we can craft policies that they will not object to. And that has a much better chance of success in the legislature than going in there as two separate entities. So, you know, it'll develop over a couple of years, but hopefully with that initiative and then also working with the agencies to get proposals into the Water Council on time, we have a much better chance of getting watershed district initiatives on the legislative agenda. And that's really what it's all about. We have to get into that right slot, and then the rest should flow through the committee process. So the other thing on the Lower St. Croix, I'm on the outreach individuals committee, and we went through, well, this was a real success story in finding employees. I've been talking to some of my business colleagues, and they're having a hard time finding people when they have resumes, especially lower level positions. And this certainly isn't a lower level, but it is just, I think, either they hit the right advertisement or there's enough people in this community of science and environment technicians to pique their interest. But we had 63 resumes come in. And so Jay and Angie sifted through them. Some were clearly not qualified. And so we were down to a pool of 27. And so all of the committee members received those 27 resumes. We went through them, ranked them, and then the top 8 were selected for interviews. So this afternoon, we did the first 4. We'll do the next 4 tomorrow morning and hope to have a decision made within a week. If there's a tie, we'll interview those people again, of course. But it went very well and very interesting and qualified people. So the decision is going to be very difficult, but really, really sharp people that we talked to today, and I expect it's going to be the same tomorrow. And that's pretty much all that I know, except the Lake Association Grant Program. I did put down the concept that I had in mind. It did divert after our discussion previously, but I wanted you to see what the real concept was. And so this should be going out to you here in the next day or two. And you should have that in front of you. And we can discuss it then at, I think it was the 28th. Is that right, John?
Right, the
On the
28th.
28th. Yep. And that's it.
Just one comment to add what Jackie has mentioned as another point of information. Mike had sent around the Clean Water Council plans to spend money next year. It was like 251 million. One of the most interesting things in that list of expenditures was Bowser's grant request, which they received $300,000 for to do a study on the consolidation of watershed districts and SWCDs.
Yeah.
So I think legally that's going to be an interesting thing since we have taxing base and everything else, but that's kind of where the direction is going right now. So we need to be talking about being on top of things. We need to have some discussions on where that's going and how that's going to impact us. So
Yeah, I personally don't think that's, when the true story comes out, I don't think that's going to sit real well with the legislators. Watershed districts can only be formed by petition. Citizen petition or local government petitions that want to have more focus on the water in their area. So I would find that very difficult for the legislature to get rid of. But anyway, Steve's right. We've got to stay on top of all of this stuff from the very beginning and not be surprised at the back door when it's gone, all the way through the system already. And that's what's happened, unfortunately, on these past issues. So we're trying to stay ahead of that game.
I
not
brought it
behind
up because I thought Chuck might have some thoughts on this, early on. And either he could raise a red flag or put up a neutral flag or a
Mhm.
green flag, so just so we can decide where we spend our time, so.
Yeah, there was one last
Okay.
thing that I wanted to mention, Steve. This is really has to do with you. Marcy Westrick sent an email to the Metro Convene members. Did you
I
receive
looked at
that?
it tonight, yep.
Okay, make sure you fill that out because it's due tomorrow.
Right.
So you want to make sure
I've
you
already
get that.
looked at it once and I'm gonna go
Yeah.
through it again. Just answer the way we feel, right?
Yes, I sent mine in yesterday. So,
Well, I just
yeah.
got it today, so.
Okay, well, make sure you fill it in. It
The
was, I
top-
think the first one was sent out a couple of weeks ago, so maybe it got buried. Or it
I
didn't
just came in
arrive.
this afternoon and I looked at it, so I'll do it
Yep.
tomorrow morning.
Yep, sounds good. Okay,
Thanks.
Okay. The only update I have is that our house is on the market for sale. The showings start tomorrow. We now have 8 showings scheduled for tomorrow, 3 for the next 3 days. So we expect to see some action on the house over the weekend, maybe next week sometime. So we will be looking for a place to rent in the area in the near future. So we may not land in the district, unfortunately. It's not a big district to try to land in, and there aren't a lot of houses for rent in the district right now. So
And
we're
we could
gonna-
sublet our office space for you.
There you
Yeah,
go.
there you go. Yeah. Well, if you can get all my furniture in the office, I'll be happy to do that. But-
why don't you take one of those lighthouse apartments or condos downtown for
Yeah.
6 months or whatever?
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from apartments because we really need a garage and a basement, and we need some space, but we'll see. But yeah, so we're moving forward and we'll see what happens. I mean, we tried this 3 years ago and it didn't work out so well, so who knows? But I have let Ben Monska know that we're moving ahead and that things might accelerate. The timeline might be a little shorter than I originally promised him, but he acknowledged my email, so he's aware of the situation. So
I'll tell you, the market is so tight that there's only 2 houses on all of Forest Lake that are up for sale.
I know it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. 2 houses, and then it just, and they may have been sold by now because Bob Muskie was saying that they go before they even go on the market. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so your timing is great this time, John.
Yeah, I think it's much better than last time. That's for sure. But-
You'll be able to buy half of Sioux Falls.
Yeah. Probably not, but we'll at least get some room to wiggle out of this, hopefully, so in the future. All right, so next item would be any updates to the summary and approval of board direction. So Chuck, did you note any items for this evening?
Mr. Chair, managers, so a set of notes around the annual report and the progress report. The needle graphs regarding district goals will be renamed district sustainability goal with the term that's been used in the slide presentation brought into the report and also put into the 10-year plan with definition. Also in the annual and progress reports, Manager Anderson asked for a chart that shows the cost per pound pollutant removed for each project and asked that staff be sure there's a different cover photo, which I believe in the chat, Emily indicated it is a new photo. And then Manager Schmaltz would like a double-sided printed copy of the progress report. And then the only other item I have is Manager Anderson asked that Emily in the weekly Friday email to the board include things such as the highway project survey that Manager Anderson referred to.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything? to note?
or things like that. Yeah,
Right.
more
Yeah,
immediate.
Things
things.
along that line, yeah.
Mhm.
Anybody else note anything?
Just
Alright.
that when they're printing Steve's reports, print a copy for me as well.
Right, we should probably all get a printed copy, all the managers.
Mhm.
All right, then I believe that is all of the business for the board this evening.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? I'll call the roll. Manager Anderson,
Aye.
Manager Smaltz. Manager
Aye.
Oakley.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good meeting.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you.